I will discuss the rest of the lectures of the clinical trial. So the last part was about the ICH, and we will discuss the ICH structures, and we said that it's subdivided into four guidelines: quality guidelines, safety guidelines, efficacy guidelines, and misdisciplinary guidelines. So the first I will discuss the quality guidelines. So we have 13 quality guidelines, we have 11 safety guidelines, we have 18 efficacy guidelines, misdisciplinary, we have 10 guidelines. So let's start with the quality guidelines. The first one is stability testing, like if the testing is stable and everything, and that is subdivided for sure into many things, but the first one, it's about the stability. Q2, which is a Q quality, Q2 validation of analytical methods, like we make sure that the analytical methods make sure of them and validation of them. Q3 is impurity testing, like contaminants or something that is associated with this drug and that is not related to it. And a Q4 is pharmaceutical issues. Q5 quality of biotechnological products. Q6 is specifications. Q7 good manufacturing practice, which is so important. And the Q8 is pharmaceutical development. Q9 quality risk management. Q10 pharmaceutical quality system. Q12 is development and manufacture of a drug substance. And Q3 life cycle management. So all these are related or under the quality guidelines, but the questions how that is related to the quality. So the first one is about the stability of the test. If it's stable and everything is good, then that's mean it's under the quality. About the analytical methods, about the impurity, like we make something keywords about these things like stability, validation of analytical methods, impurity, pharmaceutical issues, quality of biotechnological products, and some specification, good manufacturing practice, pharmaceutical development, quality risk management, pharmaceutical quality system, development and manufacture of a drug substances life cycle management. So we don't have anything so except to memorize them and repeat them as we can to memorize them. And then the safety guidelines. So we have 11 safety guidelines. S1 is carcinogenicity, like the things or drugs or something that is lead to the cancer. And S2 genotoxicity. S3 toxicokinetics and pharmacokinetics. S4 toxicity testing. S5 reproductive toxicology. S6 is biotechnological products, but here we can say the biotechnological products is Q5, but here about their safety it's under the S6. S7 pharmacology. S8 immunotoxicology studies. S9 non-clinical evaluation for anti-cancer pharmaceuticals. S10 photo safety evaluation. S11 non-clinical safety testing. So all these the safety guidelines again. S1 carcinogenicity, S2 genotoxicity, S3 toxicokinetic and pharmacokinetics, S4 toxicity testing, S5 reproductive toxicology, S6 biotechnological products, S7 pharmacology, S8 immunotoxicology study, S9 non-clinical evaluation for anti-cancer pharmaceuticals, S10 photo safety evaluation, S11 non-clinical safety testing. And now we have efficacy guidelines, like how will these treatment, and we have 18. So E1 clinical safety for a drug used in a long-term treatment. E2 pharmacovigilance, which is so important. And E3 structure and the content of a clinical study reports. E4 dose response information to support the drug registration. E5 ethnic factors in the accessibility for the foreign clinical data. E6, which is so important, is a good clinical practice, consolidated guidelines. E7 studies in support of special population geriatrics. E8 general consideration for clinical trials. E9 statistical consideration in the design of clinical trials. E10 choice of a control group in clinical trials. E12 clinical trials in pediatric population. E13 clinical evaluation by therapeutic category. E14 clinical evaluation of a QT/QTc interval prolongation. E15 definition in pharmacokinetics pharmacogenomics. E16 qualification of genomic biomarker. E17 multi-regional clinical trials, and 18 genomic sampling. And then we go to the multidisciplinary guidelines. M1 is MDR terminology, M2 electronic standards, M3 non-clinical safety studies, M4 common technical documentation, M5 data elements and standards for drug decationers, M6 gene therapy, M7 genotoxic impurities, M8 electronic common technical document, M9 biopharmaceuticals classification system based biowaivers, and M10 bioanalytical methodology validation. So all these the guidelines of ICH, International Council of Harmonization. But we will focus on E6, which is efficacy 6 guidelines, which is this GCP, and we see always GCP E6 R2. So we want to know the 13 principles of the GCP. First one, ethical principles of Declaration of Helsinki. So we should take the guidelines or the ethical principles of Declaration of the Helsinki, which is a global regulation. Benefit justifies the risk, like we make in a comparison between the benefit and the risk, and if the benefit's more than the risk, then we said that the benefits justify the risk. So the first one, ethical principles of Declaration for Helsinki, and benefit justify the risk. The other thing, rights, safety, well-being of the subject. That is the interest of the science and the society. This is the basic thing, is that safety of the subjects, the well-being of the subjects and their rights and everything about them. This is the most important one. Adequate information to support the trial, both the clinical and non-clinical. We should have all the information about the clinical trial, clinical and non-clinical. Clear, scientifically sound protocol. The protocol should be clear, should be scientific, and everything. Variable ethics approval should take approval from 2 organizations, IRP, Institutional Review Board, IEC, Independent Ethics Committee, and we will repeat these names many times. I, Institutional, R, Review Board, and IEC, which is Independent Ethics Committee, and these organizations, they are responsible for the ethics, and we should take the approval from these organizations. 7 qualified chief investigator, and we know that the investigator can be a physician or a dentist and should be well qualified. 8 training, education and experience for the trial staff. The trial staff should be training, should be education, should have experience. 9 freely given informed consent, given before the trial and maybe with withdrawal, and they have all the rights of the informed consent. Accurate data handling and storage, interpretation and verification. The data should be accurate, should the handling will be accurate, and the storage it will be accurate. Data protection and confidentiality, and that's mean privacy of these data. Good manufacturing practice, and when I said good manufacturing practice, we said it in the, I think it's S6 something 6, because we said it's E6 now, good manufacturing practice. M6 here it's gene therapy. We said safety 6, biotechnological products, and we quality, so it's a Q7. It's a Q7 good manufacturing practice. So it's a Q7 good manufacturing practice. It also one principles of the good clinical practice. So this is Q7. Quality assurance systems for all the aspects of the trial. So all these 3 principles of 13 principles of the GCP. So the first one is ethical principles of the Declaration of Helsinki. But these are by the order, but you can, like this first one, ethical principles of the Declaration of Helsinki, and the same thing, I think it's related also variable ethics approval from the institutional review board and also of independent ethics commit. I think they are related to each other. And then we talk about the benefits more than the risk, the right and the safety of the subject, the clinical and non-clinical information of a clinical trial. The protocol should be clear and scientific, all that something that is related to the protocol, like this information should be clinical and non-clinical and adequate and should be clear and scientific. This is about the protocol itself. What else about the protocol? It's accurate data handling and the storage, the data protection and confidentiality. Okay, and quality assurance, we can say that is related to the protocol. And something that is related to the subjects, like subjects, I mean here the participants, they have rights, the safety, the well-being. The other thing that about the investigator should be qualified, the trial staff should be training and educated, and about the patient, another thing about its informed consent, and the other thing is good manufacturing practice. So we can subdivide it to memorize these 13 principles, what is related to the ethics, what is related to the subject, what is related to the trial stuff, and this thing, and then we can memorize the 13 principles of the GCP. So ethical principle, benefits more risk, safety of the subjects, adequate information about protocol, clear and scientifically protocol, ethicals approval, qualified investigator, training of a trial staff, informed consent, accurate data handling and storage, data protection, good manufacturing practice, and quality assurance. So these are the 13 principles of the GCP. And then we will discuss the Declaration of Helsinki, the leading international standard adopted in 1964. It's important to know that this organization is international, and we have discussed it before when we said about the global regulation of a clinical trial, and we said that the Declaration of Helsinki is one of them. So it's a leading international standard adopted in 1964. Guidance for research on humans or their substances or data, and that is happened after what is happened in the worldwide too. So the guidelines, which is so important about these things, the first one is a protection of research participants. The most important is about the participants, about their safety, about their health, about everything, and adherence to approved research protocol. It should be done adherence to the protocol. It should the benefits more than the risks, full informed consent, publishing of the findings, placebo, and the other thing is a post-trial access to the treatment. So also after this trial, they should have the access to the treatment. So these are, we can say, the lines or the guidelines of the Declaration of Helsinki: the protection of the research participants, adherence to the protocol, the benefits should be more than the risk, full informed consent, publishings of the finding, placebo, on post-trial access to the treatment. And then we discussed the Institutional Review Board, Independent Ethics Committee. We can say it's IRP-IEC, independent body with a medical, scientific, and non-scientific members. So this organization is independent of this clinical trial and composed of many members that they are maybe medical members, scientific members, and also non-scientific members. What their responsibilities, the first thing, and you can recognize that from its name, the first one is safeguarding rights and welfare of study subjects by evaluating. Should the subjects have their rights, have their safety? That's so important. And reviewing the study progress at least once a year. They should review this study progress after a year. Evaluation of the following documents: study protocol and amendments, investigator's brochure, investigator qualification, informed consent documents and subject recruitment tools, subject compensation plans, adverse events, a protocol deviation, and reviewing the timeline. So all these are the responsibilities of IRP-IEC, which they are responsible for ethics. The first, we can say maybe 4 things. The first one, safeguarding rights and welfare of study subjects, reviewing the study progress at least annually, evaluation of the following documents, and I will discuss the documents, and also reviewing the timeline. Evaluation the following documents like a study protocol and amendments, like the changes that is maybe happened to this protocol related to the investigator, like investigator brochure and investigator qualification. We should or they should revise informed consent documents and also the subject compensation plan, adverse events, and if there are deviations of the protocol, they should revise it. And then we go to the responsibility for the investigator. So we discussed before that the investigator could be a physician or a dentist, and it's responsible for the conduct of the trial. We said that the trial, it will be started and then conduct and then close out. The conduct of the trial is the responsibility of the investigator and maybe belong to the private practice or a large university hospital. It will be a doctor or it can be a dentist, and maybe belong to the private practice or maybe belong to the large hospital, large university hospital. So it's responsible for the conduct of the clinical trial. When we talk about the setup, the trial setup, it's infrastructure. The trial and the site should be approved by regulation HA and IRP, which is Institutional Review Board, in HA health authorities. So this is about the start or the setup. So infrastructure and the trial itself on the site should be approved by health authorities and IRP. And then the conduct: first patient, first visit, first site ready to enroll, and LPLV, last patient, last visit. and the conduct is the patient recruitment, enrollment, and the treatment, data collection, all these responsibilities of the investigator. It's responsible for the treatment, recruitment, enrollment of the patient, and responsible for the data collection after the treatment. And then the close out, we do something is called CSR, clinical study report. So again, the investigator's qualification, it should have medical license, CV, GCP, all these things. The training and its experience is so important. So it should have a medical license, it should have a CV, a good CV, experienced CV, and have also the practical course for the GCP. Adequate resources, like a site training log, on site delegation log, medical care for the trial subject decision regarding a treatment, communication with the IRB IEC, compliance with the protocol, no deviation without sponsor or IRB approval. That's mean it should be had no deviation without a permission of sponsors or IRB. Investigational product accountability, randomization procedures and unblinding, that also responsible for the investigator, informed consent of trial subjects, records and reports, progress reports and safety reports, premature terminations or suspensions, final report, summary of the trial outcome. So these are, we can say, under the responsibilities of the investigator. So again, investigator qualification, it should have medical license, CV, GCP, adequate resources like a site training log and site delegation log, medical care for the trial subjects, communication with the IRBIC, compliance with the protocol. If there is a deviation, he should contact the sponsors or IRP. Investigational product, it should be accountability. Randomization procedures and unblinding, it's also the responsibility of the investigator, and we said also the global manager. Informed consent of the trial subjects, also the responsibility, records and reports, premature termination and final report. Sponsor, there are many responsibility for the sponsors. Takes responsibility for initiation, management, and financing of a clinical trial. So who is the start this clinical trial is sponsor, and also for the management, and also responsible for financing the clinical trial. The tasks is equality, audit, protocol development, data management, project and study management, clinical trial application, investigational medicinal product supply, pharmacovigilance, and we discuss also the pharmacovigilance, and I said that is so important. I think it's related to the quality. No, it's related to the efficacy, so we said efficacy. E2, it's pharmacovigilance, and it's a responsibility of the sponsors also. The other thing is the site management and monitoring. So again, what are the responsibilities of the sponsors? Quality management, quality assurance, and quality control. Contract research organization, medical expertise, trial design, trial management, data handling, and record keeping. Investigator selection, allocation of responsibility, compensation to the subjects and investigator, financing, notification submission to regulatory authorities, confirmation of review by IRB/IEC, information on investigational product, manufacturing, packaging, labeling, and coding the investigational product, supplying and handling investigational product, record access, safety information and adverse drug reaction reporting, monitoring, audit, non-compliance, premature termination or suspension of the trial, also the responsibility of sponsor, clinical trial or study reports. And about the protocol, what are the points that should be present in the protocol? The first one is generic information and the background information. It should have the trial objectives and purpose. It should have the trial design. It should have the selection and withdrawal of the subjects, treatment of the subjects, assessment of the efficacy and safety, statics, direct access to the source data or documents, quality control and the quality assurance, ethics, data handling and recording keeping, financing and insurance, publication, policy, supplements. All these things that should be present in the protocol. And then we have something is called the investigator's brochure, complies clinical and non-clinical data on investigational product. So it should have a clinical and non-clinical data on investigational product. Provision of concise, simple, objective and non-promotional information for unbiased risk-benefit assessment. So it should contains introduction and then the general consideration and then the appendixes. So we have also RACI chart. R, it means responsibility. A, it means assignment matrix. So these we can say are responsible, A, accountable, C, consulted, and I, informed. That's exactly what we mean by this chart. So R, responsible, A, accountable, C, consulted, and I, informed. Decide on what to do with the rank. And we have like peoples here, and we said like this consulted, this informed, this may be accountable, this responsible, and these things, decide on what to do with the rank, create fellowship, get the rank to Mount Doom, and discard and defeat enemies. So these are what we can say the how we use our CI chart. And the other thing that we will discuss in the next lecture, the essential documents that we should know about them, and these are so important to discuss them in the next lecture. Thank you so much for listening.